So, hello and welcome to this Happy Readers Literacy Program overview. My name is Conor O'Byrne and I'm the Director of Happy Readers, and I'll be narrating this video presentation for you today. What the aim of this program is, it's to give you a full overview of the Happy Readers scheme. The session is divided into 5 separate videos, each of fairly short duration, 10 to 20 minutes each. And we suggest you watch each of them in sequence, which will give you a good, solid overview of what the Happy Reader system is and does. And if you're part of teacher training, there'll then be a more in-depth training for teachers as to how to use the program in the scheme. But this video can be used for teacher training and for gaining a good overview of what Happy Readers is and how we do it. So let's start with part 1, which will be this section here, which will be an introduction and an overview of the scheme quite quickly. We'll then move on in part 2 to looking in more detail at the Happy Readers materials, what they are. We'll give you some feedback from some of the schools that have been using it. We'll then go into more depth and give you an overview of the project, how the project works and how the implementation works, because that's key to achieving success. And speaking of success, we will then show you some of the measured impacts on reading and literacy that we've observed through the use of Happy Readers. And I think you'll agree with us, the results are very pleasing indeed and very promising for those of you who are considering using Happy Readers in your schools. And then we will summarize at the end. Okay, so let's start with who are we? Start with the simple questions of who, when, where, and why, comprehension style, seeing as we're a literacy program. Who are we? We're a hands-on, family-run organization. We started in Zimbabwe, and the author of the books, who was my mother, is an author with over 40 years of language teaching and curriculum experience in Africa. And that's a lot of that knowledge is what's gone into the Happy Readers program, which is one of the key success factors that makes it so effective. We started this in 2010, and where do we do this? Mainly we started up in Zimbabwe, but we also operate in Zambia and Malawi, which is an exciting new development. Why do we do this? Well, because we've dedicated our lives for the last 10 years to developing reading and literacy with comprehension in Africa. And this is our mission and this is our goal. And hopefully we'll be able to share with you more of our story during this overview. So what do we do? Well, in short, we have a literacy scheme that we've developed and that we market, promote, and implement. It's designed for the African schools environment. And it comprises a set of pupils materials, as you see there on a ladder structure, so starting from simple, moving up to complex. And it's a very comprehensive literacy scheme in books, posters, materials, etc. But it's backed up by teacher training and support materials. We have the teacher resources for classrooms, kits, manuals, etc. We have implementation support resources. We have monitoring tools to monitor the progress of children and tools to test the reading so that we can measure the actual effectiveness of the program in improving children's reading. How do we do this? Well, we have an implementation methodology that we show in brief here. And so it's a step-by-step program, which I'll show you some more of just now. And we work in close collaboration with the Ministry of Education in any project we do in any country we work in. This is vital for the sustainability of the program and for the success of it. And we value that collaboration immensely. How many? Well, we've implemented Happy Readers in over 1,000 rural primary schools. We distributed over 500,000 books and modules. We've trained over 5,000 teachers, and we've got proven reach of over 1 million children. So this is a very well-established, well-developed program that's been tested, enhanced, refined, and is now a very, very effective program. We use a concept called the literacy ladder to give a structure towards our literacy scheme. What we provide is a step-by-step leveled reading program, and each level has 9 modules, and each module has 4 stages, and a level is roughly equivalent to about a year of learning reading in English. And each child goes at their own pace until they have mastered the 4 stages of each module before going on to the next one. And that's really the key thing that a teacher needs to manage is that the children do each book in sequence, and that they are able to do each of the stages before going on to the next book. The teacher guides them through, teaches them how to do it, shows them how to do it until they're able to do it themselves, and then the teacher, very importantly, must track their progress using the tools that we provide, which I will show you later. It's designed specifically for use in an English as a second language environment, because remember that when we talk about teaching reading, particularly in rural schools, we're not just teaching reading, we're also teaching English. And so we cover both of those aspects. It's the teaching of reading in English and the teaching of English as a language as well. It's obviously built on a lot of very relevant African themes. We use wildlife characters as our main characters, and many children are able to relate to the themes because they are things that affect their daily lives. But at the end of the day, what we really want to do is make it fun, because the more fun it is, the more children will enjoy using the scheme and will be more successful in developing reading ability. So let me give an overview of the scheme. I say we have level 1, level 2, level 3, comprising roughly year 1, year 2, and year 3 of learning English, whenever that is according to the curriculum. In level 1, we look at the alphabets and the sounds, the very basics of reading. Yeah, we've got the sound values, we got the letters. We then need to teach the concepts of print and words. What is print? How and what is the concept of a word? We look at initial reading, we build a core vocabulary, and we build basic comprehension even at that early stage. We don't leave that to develop till later. In level 2, once we've got a solid foundation, we continue what we call a progressive vocabulary development. We deepen the comprehension, we look at more letters and sound relationships, we look at elements of language, parts of grammar, speech, etc., and we look at word families, how words are grouped and related. And then in level 3, we go on now a much more expanded foundation. We then expand the vocabulary development, we deepen the comprehension, we look at more complex letters and sounds and more language elements. And really we aim that by the end of level 3, a child who's completed it all should be able to read pretty much anything. We open them to the world of wide range reading, and they should really be able to read anything they would find in the school library or sort of appropriate children's materials. And they're all backed up by teacher resources and materials, and handbooks and activities. To show you what the scheme looks like, this is a very quick schematic here. This appears in the back of every book, and it shows we start with sort of pre-reading, ECD, ABC levels. We have a scheme called Sounds English, which is brand new, which looks at phonemes, and how all the phonemes are built up to make up the words. Then moving on to level 1, level 2, level 3 we've seen before. We do have a numeracy scheme, and we also have Shona readers, which have been developed, although they're not yet in print. But if there's interest in it, we can explore printing that as well. So let's return to our concept of the literacy ladder. So when we look at our pupils' materials, we look at the ladder. When we start at the bottom, we move from simple to complex, and children climb the ladder step by step. Say children start at the bottom with all the pre-reading materials at ECD, the phonics, the phonemes, the sounds, etc. And we look there, we've got shapes and colors, we've got alphabet, we've got numbers, words, pictures, and these are mainly activity-based learning. There's one or two books, but it's mainly activity cards, posters, etc., to get children familiar with the letters, familiar with the sounds, and how to match those to letters, pictures, etc. We have the Sounds English scheme, which looks at the 44 phonemes of English, the 44 sounds of English, and phonics and word sounds, breaking words down into their component sounds. The pupils' books themselves, which is the core of the scheme, they're leveled and graded and going from pre-reading to advanced reader. And the reading skills we look to develop, we start with the basics of phonemes, phonics, and spelling, vocabulary, language comprehension, fluency, confidence, and overall, as we said before, making it fun, because that's what leads to good readers that can not only have the ability to read, but also develop a love of reading, which is what leads to the development of the reading culture. So that's the ladder. Okay, so we've got a ladder, we've got a whole bunch of books, pupils' books that are fantastic, wonderful. They do a really, really good job. But what does it lean up against? You've always got to lean a ladder against something for it to be stable. So we have the pupils' books, and we provide those to the children to use them to read. But we need a bit more than just adding books and children together. It doesn't just happen. So the critical thing we need is the teacher, and we provide the teacher resources, what we call teacher, which stands for I teach children how to read with happy readers. And this comprises teacher materials, teacher training, and teacher certification, so that the teacher is fully empowered and enabled to use the scheme effectively in their classroom. Supporting that, we need to monitor reading progress and measure reading ability, and we have a new scheme here which we call SMART, which stands for a School's Monitoring and Assessment of Reading Toolkit. And this looks at the two aspects. One is measuring progress of each child as they move up the ladder, and then measuring the reading ability, starting from the very beginning, and then a year later, and a year after that, so that we can measure and see if we are actually generating improvement in reading. And this builds in a reporting system which goes from the teacher to the TIC to the head, and then from the school to the school's inspector to the district, and in parallel into the education coordinator for our education projects. And then underpinning all that is the project implementation methodology that we call SHRIMP, which is Successful Happy Readers Implementation, which is the step-by-step process that we alluded to earlier. And the aim there is to provide a solid base of not only the pupils' materials, but also the teacher support, the monitoring tools, and the implementation base to make sure that we successfully implement Happy Readers projects wherever they are done. And that whole system is underpinned by the proven implementation methodology that we see here. So we put the children at the center of everything we do, and around it we build this project methodology to make sure that we plan, distribute, implement, and conduct M&E. So we start with teaching and learning materials provision, which is the materials that we've looked at. We then move on to teacher training, which is if you're watching this as part of teacher training, this is where we are in this stage, to make sure teachers and materials arrive together at the school, and the teachers are then empowered to go off and implement the scheme. We try to do it with minimal implementation support. Some implementation is always very useful, but we seek as far as possible to empower the teachers to implement this without a great deal of external intervention. This tends to make it a lot more sustainable in the longer term. And what we do need to do, we need to monitor the progress, which we do as part of the teachers, and then we do some external monitoring as well. And we look at measuring the outcomes, which is the testing of reading, and then it all feeds back into, hopefully we then get into the next year, we provide the next level of materials, the next level of training, implementation, monitoring, etc., and then into year 3 until we've implemented the whole scheme. Okay. So Happy Readers is an integrated literacy scheme that works within existing ministry structures to deliver successful literacy projects in the African rural schools environment. Okay, so that concludes the overview. That will be the end of this little video, and if you want to take a short break and then come and look at the next one, which is part 2.